be listening.
Well, we'll excuse you for not, leaning in around one camera for the whole service. Well, I'm sure there are many other things that we are excited to carry with us into Shabbat. We will begin our prayer together in song as we welcome Shabbat.
When we sing, when we sing, when we sing, we pray twice. When we sing, when we sing, when we sing, we are one. Shir Ladonai, 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 Shir Ladonai. When we sing, when we sing, when we sing, we pray twice. When we sing, when we sing, when we sing, we are one. Shir Ladonai, 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 Shir Ladonai. When we sing, when we sing, when we sing, we pray twice. When we sing, when we sing, when we sing, we are one. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me. Create a pure heart in me, Great Spirit. Create a pure heart in me, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within, and renew a true soul within me, and renew a true soul within. And as we think about pure hearts and love, may we pray together that we will all build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 olam chesed, olam chesed yibana. Yadadai, 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 I will build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. You must build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. And if we build this world from love, yadadai, 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 then God will build this world from love. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. Let's ooh, ooh. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. Ooh. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. I invite those of you who have candles to join me in lighting your candles, and then we'll sing the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Lecha dodi likat kalai yanalai 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 b'Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likat kalai yanalai 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 b'Shabbat nekabela. Shamur v'zachur v'dibur echad Hishmianu Elam Yuchad Adonai Echad Ushmo Echad the Shem Tiferet V'li Tehila Lechad Dodi Likat Kalai Hanalai 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 B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Lechad Dodi Likat Kalai Hanalai 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 B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Likrat Shabbat Lechu V'Nilcha Ki Mekor HaBeracha Merosh Mikedem Nesucha Sof Ma'aseh B'Machshava Techila Lechat Dodi Likat Kalai Hanalai 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 B'nei Shabbat Nekabela Lecha dodi likat kalai hanalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri ki va'orech kumi hori uri shedaberi kevod Adonai alaich nigla lech lecha dodi likrat kalai halalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kalai halalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala gan besimcha uv'tzola toch emunei amzigula boi chala lecha dodi likat kalai halalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likat kalai halalai 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Vitkada Shemir Rabba Belma divrachute v'yamlich malchute B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayeda kol Beit Yisrael Bagala u'v'izman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba mevarach Me'ala mulal me'al maya Yitbarach v'ishtabach Yitbahar v'idramam v'yitnaseh v'yithalal Shemei Kudesha brichu Hila mikol bechata v'shirata Tush bechata v'nechemata Damiran be'alma v'yimaru Amen. Ask those of you who are able to please rise, whether it be physically or in spirit, as we join together as a community with Baruch Hu. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, u'bitbuna mishane itim, u'machalif et hazmanim, u'mesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, u'ma'avir yom u'mevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein laila. Adonai tzvaot shemo, el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hama'ariv aravim. All goodness and truth are yours, O God. May no evil estrange us from you. Let error not confound us. Help us to understand your will. In adversity and prosperity, may your law be our light. May our deeds reflect your love. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem You may be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובחומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסיף לה, נורא תהילות אוסיף לה. מלכותך ראו בניך בוקי הים לפני משה ומרים, זה עיינו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, ועמידנו שומרנו לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, ועמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, והושיענו למען שמך. Help us to know that you're near, that your presence is here. Let us lie down in peace every night. And when we rise in the day, keep us sheltered, we pray. Guide us, God, with your love and your light. Baruch atah Adonai, הפורש סוכת שלום, עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, ועמידנו שומרנו לחיים. has blown the marketplace away. There is a song on the wind and joy in the trees. Shabbat has arrived in the world, scattering a song in the silence of the night, and eternity utters a day, and eternity utters a day. Yai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai. Adonai Sephatai Tiftach Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotinu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanurah El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Chazei Avot V'Imot U'Mevii Geula Livnei Bneihem L'Ma'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Hoseh U'Moshiach U'Magen Baruch atah Adonai Magid Avraham V'Zrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah Rav L'Hoshia Morid Hatal Mechalkei L'Chaim V'Chesed Mechayei HaKol V'Rachamim Rabim Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim U'Matir Asurim U'Mekayem Emunato L'Shenei Afar V'Chamocha Ba'al Givurot U'Miyadov Elach Melech Memit U'Mechayei U'Matzmiach Yeshua V'Ne'aman Atah L'Chayot HaKol Baruch atah Adonai Mechayei HaKol Atah Kadosh V'Shimcha Kadosh U'Kadoshim B'Cho Yom Ya'alelucha Selah Baruch atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. You may be seated.
May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Ritzei, Ritzei, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu, Be'hamcha Yisrael, U'tefilatam, Be'avat Kabel, U'teil Ratzon Tamid, U'teil Ratzon Tamid, Avodat Yisrael Amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha b'yirat avod, she'otecha levadecha
God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh lehodot. Grant abundant peace to Israel, your people forever. For you are the sovereign God of all peace. May it be pleasing to you to bless your people Israel in every season and moment with your peace. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamivarech et amo Yisrael, bashalom. We now take a moment for private prayer and reflection.
Oseh Shalom, Oseh Shalom, Israel, ve'al kol Yoshei Tevel. Vimeru, Amen.
So, one of the joys of reading and rereading our Torah each year is that we encounter the same Torah, the same stories, the same lessons. But each time we look at them, we hear them, we understand them a little differently. So while I'd be willing to bet most of you have heard at least one version of this story before, perhaps tonight you'll hear it a little different. A professor of philosophy stood before his class, and when the class began, he wordlessly picked up a large empty jar and proceeded to fill it with rocks about 2 inches in diameter. He then asked the students if the jar was full, and now remember, this is a philosophy class. The students agreed that the jar was full. He would not be able to fit any more of these stones into the jar. So the professor reaches under the lectern and picks up a box of pebbles and pours them into the jar, shaking it a little bit as the petals rolled into the open spaces between the rocks. The professor then asked the students again if the jar was full. For the most part, they chuckled and agreed that certainly now it was full. The professor reached under the lectern again and pulled up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. The sand, much like the pebbles, filling in the open areas between the larger pebbles and rocks. Now, said the professor, I want you to recognize that this jar signifies your life. The rocks are the truly important things, such as family, health, relationships. If all else was lost and only the rocks remained, your life would still be meaningful. The pebbles are other things that matter in your life, such as work or school. The sand signifies the remaining small stuff and material possessions. If you put the sand in the jar first, there would not be room for all the rocks and all the pebbles. And the same can be applied to our lives. If we spend all our time and energy on the small stuff, we'll never have room for all the big things that are truly important. It's important to pay attention to the things in life that are critical to our happiness and well-being. There will always be time to go to work or clean the house or fix the disposal, but we still must take care of the rocks first, the things that truly matter. The rest is just pebbles and sand. We learn this lesson, albeit a bit more subtly, in the first part of our double portion this week, Matot Maseh. The well-known part of the Matot half of our portion is when 2 of the 12 tribes, technically 2.5, but we'll call it 2 for simplicity, asked to settle on the side of the Jordan they're on before crossing into the land of Israel, where the majority of the tribes are slated to take possession. Moses' response to them is essentially, paraphrasing the Torah just a little bit here, so you're going to ditch us? But the Gadites and the Reubenites respond back that they will make sheepfolds for their animals and fortified cities for their children to remain safe. And then they'll continue on with the rest of the tribes across the river for the conquest of the land. And only once all the tribes are settled in their respective areas will they, the men, return home to those who aren't of military age. This seems like a great lesson in social responsibilities, that they are going to ensure the safety of their vulnerable, their women, their children, their sheep, their cattle, and they're going to uphold their obligations to conquer the land with the rest of the tribes. It seems like a win-win, right? Wrong. Moses replies back that this plan is seemingly acceptable, but in his response, his response is nuanced. Where the Gadites and the Reubenites asked to build the sheepfolds for their animals and then the towns, he flips the order. The tribes put their material possessions in front of their children, seemingly prioritizing the possessions over the people, seemingly putting the pebbles and the sand before the rocks. Some commentators go even farther, saying that the very premise of their request is flawed to begin with. That they looked around and said, we've got cattle, this land, and sheep, and this land is good for grazing. So we're going to lay claim to it because our cattle, our sheep, are more important, and we want the best and most spacious land. And that perhaps they weren't planning to assist in the conquest of the land at all until Moses calls them out on it. To know what one's own rocks, pebbles, and sand are, as our initial philosophy professor teaches, is not enough. The moral of the story usually ends with that lesson, with the lesson about priorities, about putting your rocks first. And that's easy, or at least easy enough. Were the Gadites and the Reubenites correct to put their pebbles, their cattle, or perhaps even their sand, potentially before others' rocks, the safety of their families following the conquest? Should they have worried about their sheepfolds before others had cities? What if they didn't go into battle with their brethren? How does one decide where the importance of my pebbles and sand fall within that of the larger community? Who am I to assume I know what another person's rocks are? The Hebrew word for responsibility is achrayut. It comes from the root acher, which means other, which is also the same root as acharai, which means after. To be responsible is related to how we treat others. Another way of thinking about it is that we must consider what comes acharai or acharei after. What are the after effects of our actions? In this case, putting the other tribes' needs on par with their own, for the Gadites and the Reubenites. For us, putting our own metaphorical rocks before our pebbles, or perhaps putting another person's pebbles before our own sand. Musar, the Jewish practice of ethics and inner growth, contains a guiding principle of balance. It does not seek absolutes. We cannot always put our own needs before that of others, but nor can we always put others' needs before our own. Musar would teach us that the process of evaluating and reevaluating and determining and reflecting on an action that is right and good, that is legal and moral, is a constant process. And as we come across this portion this year, as many of us are thinking about re-entry into our new normal, this idea of not only what are our rocks versus our pebbles versus our sand, what are the things that have been truly important, what are the pieces, the grains of sand that maybe we've set aside for somebody else's safety or our own health. And as we re-enter, how do we keep balancing what's in our jar with what's in the community jar that we're all adding to? Where does one person's desire to finally be free of the mask in public rank against somebody else's safety if we are wearing those masks? Where does one's desire for connection and finally hugging a friend rank against another's preference for social distancing just a bit longer? There are no easy answers to these. So I'll leave you with this. We all have circles of obligation. There are those in our lives that we would sacrifice almost anything for, that we might give up room in our jar for a rock for. And there are others, perhaps a stranger walking down the street, that we'd put our sand in front of. And it's not that that's wrong. I think the narrative in this portion encourages us to consider our circles. Who are the people that we will go to war, that we will go conquest the land with before returning home? But what is it we need to take care of at home before we go into the land? How do we evaluate our responsibilities to ourselves and our obligations to others? How do we allow ourselves to see to our own rocks that they are taken care of and get the most rocks we can in our communal jar? And how do we fit, and this is me, I always love the have your cake and eat it too. My favorite telling of this version includes a fourth layer where the professor pours water over the whole thing just to squeeze a little bit more in. So as we talk about rocks and pebbles and sand, how do we, and if there are Doctor Who fans out there, turn this into a TARDIS where we can fit even more in there? And let me know when you find the answer to that question. Shabbat Shalom. And as we think of the important things, we think of those who are in need of healing. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivcha, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech et hakolim. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. As a congregation, we pray this week especially for Jennifer Thomas Larson, Phil Rubin, Tony Lobertini, Marlene Mayman, Cicely Nathan, Sarah Swenson, Candace Chapin, Diane Schreier, Jim Hagan, Rhonda Hathaway, Gershon Reuven Ben Esther, Linda Dean Harris, Rivka Bat Avraham Visara, William Rossi, Rosalind Moss, Pat Bloom, Ronald Epstein, Helen Fine, James Hockman, Christine Wagner, Tracy Huddleston, Joe McKenna, Jerry McDonald, Richard Lieberman, Joel Pinsker, Marty Sacker, Bob and Gert Kahn, Chelsea Smith, and Deborah Seidel. If there are others that we ought pray for, I invite you to name them aloud in your homes or add their names in the chat as we sing the words of Misha Berach together.
Misha Berach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. Misha Berach Imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, v'Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Misha Berach Avotenu, Misha Berach Imotenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
I'll ask those of you who are able to please rise physically or spiritually with us as we continue with Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabach l'adon hakol, latit gdula le'otzeh breshit, shelo asanu k'gehei haratzot, ve'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam kelkenu kahem, ve'gorolenu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishtachavim u'modim, livnei malach, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai, L'melech al kol haaretz, Bayom ahu, Bayom Ushemo, Ushemo, Ushemo Echad. We begin to meditate on those who are no longer with us, and we join together in the words by Hannah Senish, set to music by Jeff Klepper. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember, as we live our days. These are the ways we remember, we remember.
Our thoughts turn to those whom death has taken from us recently. As a congregation, we are in a period of Aninut for Sally Green and a period of Shloshim for Vitaly Berkovich. And we recall those who have died at this season in years past, with the yahrzeits of Maxine Allen, Emmanuel Morris Arnovitz, Harry Block, Eric Brown, Robert L. Klein, Frank D. Cohen, Louis L. Cohen, Hyman S. Dennis, Julius E. Finn, David C. Finn, Joseph O. Frank, Joe Friedman, Rose Gall, Benjamin Benny Goldfleece, Gilbert Goldstein, Jacob Goldswig, Louis Hamblin, Mary Hanlon, Mildred Hensley, Ralph Heyman, Molly R. Jacobs, Belle C. Jaffa, Lorraine Kotler, Rosella B. Lapidis, Sylvia M. Liebensberger, Hans Lieberman, Stuart Mayman, Max Mann, Esther Meyerson, Dorothy B. Moyer, Elaine Noble, Nathaniel Patterson, May R. Prigozhin, Samuel I. Rosenthal, Isaac Sajevitz, Sol Slavin, James Stewart, Marjorie R. Tanis, Harry E. Weprin, Henry Winters, and Norma Jane Zapin. If there are other names that ought to be added or pronounced more correctly, I invite you to share them aloud at this time. I'll invite those in mourning or remembering to rise first, as we join them standing in spirit and or in body with the words of Mourner's Kaddish. Yit gadal v'yit kadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach yirutei, bi'amlich machutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, b'agala u'bizman kariv, v'imru amen. Yehe shemei rabba mivarach, le'elam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitaleh, v'yithalal, shemei dekudesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh Shalom v'imrumav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always and only be for a blessing. If you have some fruit of the vine, I invite you to lift your glass now.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, b'shabbat kodsho, be'ahava uvratzon yinchelanu, zikaron l'ma'aseh v'reishit, Ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'achata, ve'otanu kirashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodeshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, inchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat L'chaim. I will trust Rabbi Sobo will have the challah. Yay.
Yes, it is a piece of a normal size challah this week.
Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, b'te'avon.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And I should say chazach, chazach, benit chazech, as I believe with this double portion, we are finishing the book of Numbers. Come back next week for Deuteronomy. Feel free to unmute yourselves and say hi and schmooze a bit.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Nice to see you.
Same here.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.